Hey, let us begin the show.
For Thursday, August 26, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to the show this week. I now understand why radio hosts and DJs only, sometimes when you see them do video, only have one earbud on or one half of the headphones on. You can't hear yourself. I hate not being able to hear myself. And I'm using headphones now that feel isolating. They're not noise canceling. They're just very sound isolating. And it sounds like I have a cold the whole time I'm wearing the headphones. So
that's the We Are the World look where you got
one, you got your hand there.
Exactly.
Put your hand there and it kind of bops to the beep. All right. Hello, everyone. And welcome to the podcast. This week we're recording actually a day earlier. This podcast will be out Thursday, but it's Tuesday. So hopefully no breaking news happens Wednesday or Thursday morning. But I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, Jeremy Williams.
What's up?
Well, the sky? I don't know. What are you supposed to say to that? It's very
that
early.
one in 30 years. Nice one.
And Kishore, good to see you.
I'm not going to say what's up because that was weird and terrible.
How are you guys doing?
Fine. Doing well. My cat is having issues. Kept me up for most of the middle of the night. Won't stop urinating everywhere in the house,
urinating.
like everywhere. So we put her in the bathroom, and then she like cries the whole night and starts scratching at the door.
Oh,
took her to the hospital. Like we can't help you. Give us $800.
Wow,
this is no good. It's no good.
That's a lot of money.
Besides that, I'm great.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So you're like, Kat, if you had stopped peeing, then I could buy like a top end Steam Deck or like two Oculus Quests. No. Right? Like these are how financial decisions are made. Or you could tell your kid, right? Like if you can get the cat to stop peeing everywhere, just stop peeing in general, that might be a new video card upgrade for you. Kishore, how about you?
I'm hanging in there. I have really been hunkered down, and so I am just devouring so much streaming content right now. I've been hopping show to show and looking for recommendations. I made a terrible mistake. I watched an episode of F-Boy Island last night.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, that's correct. It was, you know what? It's boring. That's the real review of it. It's not even that entertaining.
So for people who don't know, this is an HBO Max show, I believe, and given the name, it's a show that got greenlit because of all the increasingly risque relationship pairing shows that you see on Netflix that are too saucy even for basic cable that Netflix had a huge success with. What was theirs? Like Temptation Island or something. And so they put theirs out on HBO. They call it F-Boy Island. So clearly they're going for it. But I'll tell you this, Danica watched part of the show and could not get through it, partially because even on the show, they refuse to swear. They refuse to say the full name of the show. You would assume that for the purposes of, getting advertisements out, they had to call it F-Boy Island. But you assume that actually on the show, they would fully go full expletive. They don't. They stick to the branding. Disappointing.
That was the turnoff for Danica?
That was the turnoff. No. So corporate. Yeah.
There's only one boy for her, Norm.
And it's my son. It's our son. He requires all the attention. But yeah, things are going all right in this house. I've eaten 6 slices of cake over the past 48 hours as of this morning. We got a cake at the office. Sorry, you guys didn't come into the office. We had a video shoot at the office, and there was cake at the office yesterday. It's still in the fridge. If you guys want to come in and grab some cake, there's some cake in the fridge.
It sounds
very
good.
delicious.
It's
very
6
delicious.
slices. Yeah, 6 slices of cake must make it pretty good.
A lot. That's why I got my coffee as well. But yeah, Adam's back from some travels. We have Silicon happening this weekend. He was just at AwesomeCon in DC and MegaCon in Orlando. A lot of great photos. Looks like a lot of fun for all the folks who are there for autographs and panels, and a lot of great cosplay, as we talked about last week. Sure. But back in the homestead, just working on some projects. If you didn't see, I posted on social media and I posted a video on the channel. I spent this past week working on a LED quote unquote neon sign that I made for Danica for our anniversary as a present for her. And so I had a lot of fun at making that. You should check out that video.
That was I thought that was super cool because I'd never seen that material before, and I have some experience with LEDs.
This is the thing I'm learning about as I'm diving into like the deep Amazon and Alibaba hole of LED strips. Like I started off just buying your super cheap, super generic 2835 or 3528 or even 5050 LEDs. These are the ones that you can buy 16 feet of for less than $1 a foot, what you would line the walls with if you don't want to do any programming, right? Yeah. Some of them have just built-in controllers wired in. Some of them just all you can do is maybe attach it to a barrel connector and a dimmer, but they're great for lighting up some shelves. You can maybe put in a diffuser. There's like a whole industry supporting this stuff because people have putting these LED strips in their kitchens, in bars, in public spaces, like they're everywhere. But the manufacturers, they really have innovated and they really try to differentiate themselves with all these different, even using the same actual LED chip, they're using different configurations of the spacing, how they lay them out on the strip themselves, with the different connectors that you can use to join them. And then this one, which you can see an example of in the background if you're watching the video, is I guess they call it Neon Flex or just a silicone flex LED strip. Adafruit sells them as well.
Oh.
And I think in shorter lengths.
It solves the biggest problem with LED strips, which is that they can only bend in one direction. So you're always facing the light outward if you want to curve around something,
right.
which typically, it's okay. Or like you find ways around it. You mount lights facing against the wall if you're mounting on shelves, and then it kind of, diffuses out around the whatever it is that you're lighting up. Or if you want to face it directly down, it's fine. But if you want to do a curve like you did with your letters and your shape there, it's you either have to cut multiple strips or find what you did, which was the diffusion material actually sort of takes it at a 90-degree angle, right? So the strip is actually perfectly bent in those shapes, but it gets reflected upwards by whatever the silicon is.
Yeah, and the silicone is tinted, so it's tinted throughout. It's actually a really thick piece, and so they can use cheap LED strips because they don't care about the hot spots. It solves it not only allows for the bending, but also increased diffusion because it's getting an extra layer of bounce. But the real benefit is the ability to bend, and you can get tight corners. So you can't get perfect sharp angles because they just don't bend that way. If you want any type of sharp angle, you got to cut it.
Do they come in RGB?
They do. You know what they do? I just have not been able to find a good price for RGB one. But yes, they do.
Cool.
I bought a bunch of different solid colors. The thing that I'm working on next, to give you a little bit of a preview, is someone posted a comment to the video like, "Oh, how could you potentially get a flickering LED look, like a flickering neon sign look?" So the idea, if you have multiple colors like I have in the back, the illusion that they're shorting out on one of the tubes, and you get that kind of flicker or just some type of effect, and you could wire it to a controller, like I'm sure you've done, Jeremy, and just, USB to a library and code in something on, and that would require the strip having addressable, right? Some one pin of GPIO. Or what I found, and I'm gonna do a video about this, is off the shelf barrel connector interrupts that are 5 inches in length. They are barrel connector on one end, on the other end. So made for the stupidest LEDs possible. Effectively, the same type of thing that you would what a dimmer would be, except built into the center is a controller board with buttons on it. And a company, I want to say out of somewhere out of the East Coast, makes them for theatrical effects. So theaters who want to do like a fake flame on the stage and just want some type of like flickering flame effect, they can line up the red LEDs and then or spotlights or whatever, and as long as it's up to 24 volts, you can put the barrel connector in. And then you can switch between modes like different flickering effects, different pulsating wave effects,
and it's
like
not
ember-like
addressable
effects.
It's just changing and sort of turning on and off the voltage.
It is literally adjusting the voltage on the
Wow.
controller board. Yeah. And you can do pulsating things. And so you can get like a pack of 3 of them for $30, which isn't cheap. But if you're talking about buying a microcontroller board that you're going to just dedicate to a purpose, it's going to be $5 to $10 anyway. And this requires no programming. You plug it in, and I got a couple packs of them to try out. But so you can do a flickering light, or you can do like an animation, right? If you have a couple of them and you have like 3 frames of wired tubing, you could do like a neon sign that animates in 3 frames, like those old Las Vegas signs.
Wow. Huh.
That's
right?
cool.
Is that a neat effect? It required a little bit. I mean, you're basically doing the same design you would be doing for real glass neon, except without having to blow the glass.
Yeah. Or
You're
dealing
still
with
doing
heat
the wiring
or high
yeah.
voltage.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
Or the
neon's-
neon
yeah.
filling of the tubes, which is a pain unto itself.
Yes. Yeah. There's there. Yeah. So it's. I think it's a pretty convincing effect. Looks pretty nice. They're 6 millimeter
really
diameter.
Good. Yeah. I really appreciated how you put in the video the actual design in Adobe that you did too, because I think so many build videos like omit that step, which is frankly like a good portion of the time anyways. I mean, well, not in your case, because you cut so many strips, so you had to solder like a billion connections, but
it's a really good point. And I'd love to get feedback from people, or even you guys who watched the video. Like, was it too Adobe Illustrator, like too design focused? Like if I look at my timeline of my edit, right, for a 20-minute video, there was a good 8 minutes in there that was voiceovering, the vector design process, which Kishore sounds like you appreciated, because it was specific to this design of turning a hand-drawn thing into a design thing. But I don't know if people want more about the electronics and the soldering, and even then that was a sped up sequence of like an hour and a half in Adobe Illustrator that I trimmed down to 8 minutes. And so like it was finding that balance of what to explain to camera. It wasn't a straight up tutorial. You see a lot of these like software tutorials where people pause and do highlights over the windows and the menu icons. And here I was trying to help it so you could pause and you can see what I was clicking, but it was about the general idea if you wanted to adapt to your vector design program of choice.
Hey, one other quick build thing I want to mention, and this came up on Reddit, is somebody 3D printed a very small version of the Simpsons TV.
Yeah.
Did everyone see this?
Yeah.
And like put a Raspberry Pi Zero in it with a small screen. And when you turn the knobs, it plays a random clip from The Simpsons on it.
I think he was even more clever than that. First of all, the compactness of this, I love how small, like the miniaturization of this box, like built in was like a 2-inch display, 32 gigs of storage was enough for probably a re-encoded seasons 1 to 11 of The Simpsons, arguably the best seasons of The Simpsons. But it wasn't one of those you turn it on and it starts a random episode. The episodes were always playing. He wanted to create the illusion that it was a broadcast signal playing a Simpsons nonstop, so that when you turn on the display, you're not turning on the entire unit. The entire unit's been playing the whole time. You're just turning on the display so that you're tuning in to an episode of The Simpsons, which I love that idea of the experience.
I think that they based part of that model on an existing model that's on Thingiverse. So if you want the Simpsons TV, like there are mock-ups of that on there. I recognized the antenna, especially because I had been asked by Matt Henry, who runs Free Gold Watch, our pinball, the biggest pinball arcade in the Bay Area here in San Francisco, to make a topper for his Simpsons pinball game. That was the Simpsons TV running on loop every Itchy and Scratchy cartoon.
Oh,
It was
that's
very
Nice.
similar, except it wasn't a 3D print; it was laser cut. I was
Ah.
looking for a picture of it here, but I'm having no luck. But
So did you end up making that?
yeah. I made it totally. It's a really straightforward build, and but I loved this one that you guys mentioned too.
I bet this is going to turn into a product somewhere.
I would
like
love
there
for
was,
this to be a product.
I mean, even like writers from The Simpsons were weighing in at how awesome this was.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Al Jean, who's like the executive producer of The Simpsons, was like, "This is incredible.
Nice.
That looks great."
This is the Ghostbusters one. I made this one first, and then we got the idea for this. The Simpson one looks better because it's the actual TV from the show.
Right. It's a little cartoonish, has that color. I mean, I think he 3D printed it with the right tinted filament, so it was the right colors as well. And I guess you could do it for Twilight Zone, Jeremy. There are a lot of pinball machines that could use toppers. Batman, like all these vintage ones. I could see this being a product more like an Etsy product than a officially licensed thing, because it would just be so difficult to license all the shows or make it siloadable. That would probably not be in the interest of
No, I don't think they would
Disney.
give you the SD card with the 11 seasons preloaded. I think they would be like, here's a flat box that you can insert an SD card into.
Well, you can sideload your home videos.
Technically, all you need is a web browser that could then stream them from whatever service currently has The Simpsons.
Yeah, try signing in on that device.
Right.
That's great.
Talk about frictionless, playback. Right? Where's your input? Press the antenna, press the buttons. It's an amazing build. I'll put a link to where you can find it if you haven't seen it in the show notes. But let's move on to some big pop culture news. We had some massive Disney news. We're going to start off with the stuff that happened earlier in the week. First of all, as we all expected, Anthony Mackie has signed on to play Captain America in the upcoming Captain America 4 movie. Now, this was all rumored and what everyone had hoped for after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV show, and it makes logical sense. Malcolm Spellman, who is the showrunner and one of the lead writers on that show, is coming back to write this movie, so hopefully continues that story. The thing I did not see in this announcement was the signing on of Carl Lumbly, bringing back Isaiah Bradley. Come on, where's that news? That's what I want to hear.
Well, I mean, I think they just signed Anthony Mackie, so I feel like we got a little ways to go before all of the other characters. I'm very curious to see what story they try to tell. They're a long way off. Like they're talking 2023 or even beyond for the release date for this. So, this is towards the end of the current phase that we're in.
Oh, so I mean, did they say it was going to be phase 4? Because I was wondering if it was phase 4 or phase 5.
So Feige said he has a release date in mind, but wouldn't say what it was. But the indications are the slate is reasonably full until 2023. So people are thinking it's like out that far, which would put it in the current phase.
Okay. All right. And maybe that would give away too much if he was to confirm that it was phase 4, a culmination of something. Well, we're in the thick of phase 4 right now. We've had Shang-Chi early reviews have come out. The movie comes out in a week and a half. I believe it's high 80s in Rotten Tomatoes. So very positive reception. Cannot wait to be able to see that.
Norm, the internet wants to know, did you hear back from Marvel when you sent out your public plea to be an early reviewer?
I you know what? I figured for my birthday I could make that plea. I got the internet's support and backing. And
yeah, you did.
I did not get any response from Marvel
yet.
Okay. Yeah, there's still a week and a half, right? If we want to talk about it on the podcast next week, Marvel, I am available this Friday and also next Monday. I'm happy to leave my children to daycare and their grandparents so I can spend 2.5 hours watching a Marvel film. Just tell me where to show up. I'll sign an NDA. But yeah, I'm very looking forward to that. But I guess we're also talking about the films to come after Shang-Chi, and the one to come immediately after in this fall is going to be Eternals. And we had the first teaser trailer, but now we have also seen I guess they're calling it, is it the final trailer for Eternals now? Which reveals
I don't know if they said the word final, but this is a meaty trailer where they give you the whole kind of the basic plot of the movie comes out in this trailer. So if you're trailer averse like Joey is on the team, I would skip this discussion for a couple minutes. They really lay out the case for the Eternals, like who they are, who their villain is, why they haven't been involved in conflicts preceding this, and the timeline for this movie. So they make it clear this is happening after the blip, but it seems to be fairly soon after the blip. And as a consequence of the blip, there is something called the emergence that's going to devastate the world in 7 days, because apparently it's always 7 days that the world is about to end. And they lay out their villain as the deviants, and they lay out their sort of say masters / creators / rulers in the Celestials. And we get a shot of one of the Celestials at the end. We actually see a couple Celestials throughout this. And then we see the deviants as the people they're fighting off. And they really set this up as these Eternals have been separated on Earth for centuries, and they have to come back together to fight whatever this is. It looked good. It laid out a ton of story right from the get-go, which emphasizes to me they have to do just like a ton of world building for this story. And that's what the bulk of this movie is going to be.
I didn't understand. I'm glad you said that, because I didn't even understand this was happening on Earth. I thought this was another planet. There's a lot of mystical stuff going on here. I figured this was somewhere else entirely. I mean, obviously the snapping affected the entire universe, so it could have been anywhere else. Yeah, I don't know. It's a Marvel movie, so I bet it'll be good, but my expectations are kind of low. I'm not super turned on by this trailer, excited by it. Are you?
Yes, because it looks like a very different Marvel film. It's not in the kind of established cities. The fact that I think, Kishore, you're right. So much of this is going to be flashback, telling about how the Eternals have lived among humans and their maybe influences or interactions with human culture. You see scenes of like Babylon, a nuclear explosion. You see all these major events in human history. And so it's going to be spanning, many thousands of years, which is, I think, really cool. And Chloe Zhao's aesthetic of all these like cliffside sunsets, these very dramatic vistas, I think is brought to bear here. Also the action, you see Richard Madden as Icarus. Is that his character? The leader of the Eternals, the Superman-esque character. And it seems to have a lot of crazy, he has these eye blasts, he's flying around. It basically feels like a Superman-esque character. And then you saw Kit Harington, who played Jon Snow, another Game of Thrones alum here. And he plays Black Knight, which is another character, not an Eternal, but kind of a side character that also has a big fan base in the Marvel community. And this is laying the seeds for maybe something he's going to be doing later on.
Also a big fan base in the Monty Python community. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Oh, yes.
Oh, nice.
Oh, my
well
God.
done.
Kit Harington.
I actually hope they go a little Game of Thrones-esque here with a little, family intrigue, battles between families, because they tried to do that with Inhumans, the show that was on ABC, and really fell flat. But this seems like an area they can explore with these characters. I also have low expectations. This did not get me super hyped, but at least I have low expectations because I think this film, there's just so much ground to cover. They have to introduce like 7-8 new characters. They have to tell their origin. They have to build this whole kind of celestial world around them. They haven't laid the groundwork. And then they have to somehow connect that back into the other stream of stuff happening. So I don't know how all of that fits together neatly in a 2.5-hour movie. I'm very excited about Chloe Zhao directing this because she makes beautiful, beautiful movies.
So there was some talk in the trailer about why didn't the Eternals stop any of these other horrible things from happening throughout history? And they said they were instructed not to. And then they said who, and they looked up and it looked like there was a figure in the sky. Is that the Watcher from the What If series that's like telling the story?
No, that's a celestial, and in like Marvel canon, celestials like birth galaxies and like make planets and stuff. We saw hints of them in previous movies, most notably when the Collector is explaining the Infinity Gems. You see this one big character with the Power Stone slam his like staff on a planet and mow down a bunch of people. That's a celestial. There's like 8 of them. They're very kind of bizarrely named character. Nowhere is the head of a celestial that was alive from Guardians.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's like a few things. They have to explain that entire kind of arc of what celestials are and what they do. And how they've sort of governed the Eternals like position on Earth. So it's a ton of work.
I mean,
now that being said, there's a different trailer that was more exciting.
Yeah, and Marvel has done a great job, like preparing the mainstream audience to accept these big ideas. You know, these started off with 20 years ago, or not 20, I guess, over 10 years ago, with Tony Stark with a metal suit in the desert, and now they're telling stories of gods and of galactic beings in cosmic space. But shows like Loki, establish the cosmic nature of the Marvel universe, and things like What If, also with the Watcher. So I think fans will be, even casual fans will not have a difficult time, as long as they storytell correctly, accepting this as part of Marvel canon. And same with the multiverse. So the other big trailer that dropped, and Sony and Marvel, I think, maybe wanted to put this out, maybe were forced to put this out earlier than they had anticipated or hoped, because of a massive trailer leak that happened over the weekend. But the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, the first look at Spider-Man No Way Home, was released yesterday as we're recording this. 2.5 minutes, almost 3 minutes of unbelievable footage. How should we break this down?
This broke my brain. This was incredible. This is incredible. I almost regret watching this. It was so incredible. So, because there's stuff that shows up in this trailer that had been rumored, but at the same time, it's a bit of a spoiler, and you get a sense of the story arc. Should we just get into it? Trailers are fair ground, right?
I think they're fair ground. I think you're right. They're fair ground. And this is one of those things that even the Twitter algorithm of mentions you couldn't avoid keywords, because keywords were trending on Twitter that were related to speculation even about this trailer. So much speculation. So the trailer opens with where the last movie ended, which is J. Jonah Jameson revealing to the world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And so they're not going to brush that off. The consequences of that really drive the motivations of the story. And you see a lot of shots of Peter Parker and even MJ, Zendaya, having to deal with the repercussions in their school, all the kids and all the and protesters, and how it affects their friends and family, Ned and Aunt May. And so it leads to Peter Parker, Spider-Man, going to visit Doctor Strange. Now, this, I don't know if I was prepared for, because we knew Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was coming next year. And that would have Wanda after WandaVision. And but they're both newer characters, and I guess it makes sense. And so you see Peter Parker asking Doctor Strange, wearing a parka version of his cloak and his cape and sweats and a cup of coffee, as I guess it's cold in his sanctum, asking him to see if there's any way magic can help the world forget that he's Spider-Man. It's a storyline that's actually been broached many times and used, actually, not to popular fan effect, as a way of resetting the story in the comic books. So they're definitely taking that. But apparently the spell goes wrong, because Peter Parker doesn't want MJ to not remember who he is, or Aunt May, or his best friend Ned. And what happens is a lot of magic effects, like some of the weird Inception-like collapsing of buildings, weird mirror universe type things.
Well, also Doctor Strange type stuff. I mean, Inception and Doctor Strange have a lot of similar visuals.
Right. It almost felt more like it looked more like a Doctor Strange trailer than a Spider-Man trailer in terms of what the shots they use. But you see, as the trailer reaches its climax, these quick shots of antagonists and things that are attacking Spider-Man, things they'll have to deal with that people are picking apart, culminating in a final scene of Dr. Octopus's tentacles coming through the rubble on a highway, and it's Alfred Molina's Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, who emerges and says, "Hello, Peter." And the trailer ends right there.
So let's just break down elements of this. Like, as soon as we get to the multiversal components of this, we hear Doctor Strange say, "We don't understand the multiverse." And which is a great line. And I think it brings up the question, where is this in the timeline relative to what we saw happen in Loki at the end with the multiversal explosion, and what we saw in WandaVision at the end with her in the post-credit scene, hearing the voices of her kids. It's also worth noting in WandaVision, they had a date circled on the calendar of August 23rd, which happens to be the date that this trailer released, but that's getting in the weeds.
What an important date. You know, also, I will tell you the WandaVision date of August 23rd being circled was in the beginning of the show, right? Mm-hmm. And in the first episode, and that was the date that she and Vision had planned to buy the house. Mm-hmm. That was the date.
I think there's a lot of stuff happening all at once. So I think this trailer puts this as like the same time the thing with Loki's happening, same time thing with Wanda's happening. This happens. We see Peter in a black suit running through a food shelter, which is Feast, which for any fans of the Spider-Man video games or comics will know who that potentially means. We saw a weapon from the Green Goblin come down, and we heard Willem Dafoe's voice. We saw a shot of the Sandman. We saw a lightning bolt from Electro. We saw, obviously, Doc Ock come out at the end. But this is like all of Spider-Man's villains showing up at once. And Spider-Man in all of his different suits. In different ways, like Iron Spider suit.
Yes, his Iron Spider suit. That black suit is not what people think as being the Sam Raimi suit.
But it's also, and it's not the symbiote suit.
No, either.
But like, we see Spider-Man in different versions of himself. I think people are suggesting, oh, this is going to open up Sinister Six. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's what this is. I feel like this is going to end up being something. A spell that actually Doctor Strange cast to force Spider-Man to confront his own inner self-identity issues.
Duality.
Yeah. And not like a thing that's actually happening. But in doing so, like, the multiverse is breaking. So this opens things up. I do think the one thing this opens up is the potential of live action Miles Morales. Let's just say it. It's going to be out there. We just have to say it.
Well, okay.
I think it opens up the possibility. When we saw Feast, that's what that means.
Let's take one step back, because Sinister Six, Jeremy, are you familiar with the concept of Sinister Six?
I'm going to need you to take more than one step back.
8 steps back, 8 legs back, right? It's a spider.
Yeah. Right.
Sinister Six is the team up of supervillains in the Spider-Man comics. It's like all the most popular Spider-Man villains teaming up against Spider-Man. They call themselves the Sinister Six. Think of it as like the Avengers of Spider-Man villains. And in the movies, anytime a studio like, Sony has attempted to make multiple Spider-Man films, they try to lay the seeds of like, how do you culminate to something that's like an Avengers for Spider-Man? Well, you do it because every movie has one or multiple villains. And then if the villains all team up, it becomes a big event. It's the Sinister Six. Now, with the MCU, they're not going to have that runway to make 6 Spider-Man films or 4 Spider-Man films because of the contract with Sony. Remember, this film was not supposed to happen in the MCU because Sony still has the rights to make Spider-Man universe and Spider-Man character films. This film happened because of a deal made in 2019 for Marvel Studios to produce the one last MCU Spider-Man film to tie up the Tom Holland story. And then Tom Holland is Sony's boy now. He's going to be telling stories with Venom and Miles Morales and Into the Spider-Verse. It's not an MCU film because it's a part of the Sony Spider-Man universe. And so John Watts, the director-writer for this, has a chance, and with Kevin Feige, of course, to give you the Sinister Six, not by introducing new versions of Doc Octopus, new versions of Green Goblin, but they're tapping into the multiverse and bringing in familiar versions to us, the fans. Sam Raimi's version of Green Goblin, maybe the Mark Webb version of Electro. That was the guy who directed the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films. And so you have Lizard, Electro, Sandman, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, right? And probably not Mysterio, but you can add it up. You're going to get 6 villains. So you're going to have a version of the Sinister Six fight Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and it's the way they can tell the equivalent of that story while then giving him a graceful exit from the MCU.
But not Michael Keaton?
Oh, Vulture. Yeah, maybe.
Vulture is usually part of that.
Yeah. Vulture. I mean, he had he could be the last one. You're right. I thought you were going an extra layer of depth, Jeremy, because Michael Keaton is returning as 1989 Batman in the Flash film, which also is tapping into DC's multiverse.
What? He is? Oh my God.
Yes.
No.
And so I thought you were going to extra meta level, and I was going to give you extra props for that reference.
I deserve no props.
The Vulture, yes. He also is the Vulture.
But now you're saying maybe Miles Morales. Does that open the door to other characters from that movie? Like maybe 2 versions of Doc Ock, like the Doc Ock from Miles Morales as well?
I don't think we're going to see a crossover from the Into the Spider-Verse characters, and I don't think we'll see Miles Morales with Spider-Man powers. I think they could tease that Miles Morales exists, and that sets up like Spider-Man, whatever, 5? Would it be
4?
4.
Yeah.
But to me, this is an insane collection of people coming together for this movie, because it hints that Peter is not going to be the only Peter Parker in this movie. And so we'll see if that comes to fruition too.
Do you remember how the internet lost its collective mind when you had Quicksilver in WandaVision appear, and it was the Quicksilver in Fox's X-Men movie and not the Quicksilver in the Age of Ultron MCU one, and that was a crossing of actors and studios, and people were talking Mephisto and talking multiversal stuff. This is actually that, but legitimately happening, where they're finding a way to reconcile the fact that Spider-Man as a franchise has been rebooted in the past 23 years 3 times, with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Mark Webb's Spider-Man, and John Watts' Spider-Man, the directors. And the fact that Sam Raimi is directing Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness right now adds an extra layer of meta complexity to this.
Well, I got to tell you, like when I watched this trailer personally, like I thought it should have ended when the spell went wrong. I thought that would have been a great ending to the trailer. I was hooked. I wanted to see what happened. I didn't want any spoilers for what happened. And then I was given a bunch of spoilers. But you just got so much more out of the second half of that trailer than I did. I only recognized Doc Ock. I didn't realize there were even other evil supervillains represented there.
They quick cut through all of them. People are going frame by frame, playing the YouTube video at 0.25 speed. There's a great debate. I mean, I would say great. There's a debate among fans on Twitter whether the arms of one of the people you see out of frame as Tom Holland is in the police station is Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil in the Marvel TV show, in the Netflix show, if it's going to be Daredevil appearing, if that's his lawyer. And that's just an arm that's showing. And people are losing their mind over the fold-up sleeve of an arm.
Yeah, I'm not down that rabbit hole. And I don't believe this is... I don't believe that. I still think this movie is going to be like a contained movie in the sense of this isn't quote unquote real. Like he's not traversing multiverses in this. I think that's like a bit of a MacGuffin. I think it is going to be Doctor Strange like casting a spell that allows him to do this exploration, and those characters from the other universes are not going to be, you know, main antagonists throughout the film, but will have just short stints in the movie. I just don't see you getting like all of those people in here for like a full 2-hour movie where they're going to be the main villains.
What? I think you're not thinking big enough, Kishore, because
you think they're going bigger.
I think they're going to go bigger. I see the format you're talking about, right? If you're talking about over the span of a film, he has these ghosts of Christmas multiverses come in, and Doc Ock, fights him, and then Electro fights him, and he gets a glimpse of Sandman. I think they are going to culminate, and the reason I think they're going to culminate is how else would you have Spider-Man need the assistance of maybe 2 other Spider-Men to come and defeat the Sinister Six? And it can't just be Tom Holland. They're going to have to pay off that fan service and have, it is kind of like, a Christmas Story and Spider-Man seeing all the different versions of his life that could have been, where he marries an MJ and where, he keeps his identity or doesn't keep his identity and he has to face the consequences. But I do think they got to pay it off with 3 Spider-Men fighting off against this team up of villains.
Sounds fun. I do like the idea of MJ forgetting that he's Spider-Man. That reminds me very much of the original Superman. Is it Superman 2? Where Lois
a magic kiss.
Yeah. I mean, that was heartbreaking. I like that.
So that's coming out at the end of this year, assuming no other delays happen. But the last big Marvel movie we got before all this lockdown stuff was Spider-Man: Far From Home, and we're now back in the thick of it for Marvel. All right, we're going to wrap up the podcast with a couple more things. Netflix dropped some first screenshots, no video, of its highly anticipated Cowboy Bebop live action series. If you're not a fan of the anime, you should go find a copy, watch that. It is groundbreaking stuff. And fans are kind of hopefully optimistic. Live action adaptation, not always necessary for this stuff, but the casting seems right. And I mention it because they have a wonderful corgi, Ein, in the show. And it's one of those things when we first started doing Tested, Will had his corgi, Chloe, and every time Chloe would make an appearance in the video, the comments would just be filled with, "That's Ein. That's the corgi from Cowboy Bebop." And she did look like that corgi. So a very big, devoted fan base. Into other news, Disney, as we are big Disney fans. Jeremy, as you just came back from Disney. When you went, was there Fast Pass? Was that still available? Was that a thing that was happening?
No Fast Pass at all. Only the queue system for the 2 big rides.
So the app-based queue system.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Fast Pass is going away forever. They've announced a rebranding, a new system called the Genie Pass. And guess what? It's a lot like the existing Fast Pass, or what was the existing Fast Pass and Fast Pass Plus system, except you gotta pay. You gotta pay per day.
No.
You gotta pay. And so it's $15 a day, I think, per person. So not a ton, but they're nickel and diming you here and there. And you can only reserve Fast Pass for 1 ride at a time. Previously, you could do like multiple Fast Passes throughout the day as long as they were spaced out, like 60 or 90 minutes apart or something. Now, even if you're paying, you only get 1 reservation at a time. And some of the exclusive rides aren't even available. They're an extra upcharge.
It's $20 at Disneyland.
Oh, sorry, $20 at Disneyland, and even a surcharge for the high demand rides.
That's crazy. Wow. And do you have to be at the ride to get in line in the Fast Pass like you used to, or can you do it from anywhere?
I think they're really reinforcing the app and getting people to book via the app.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, is it like the queue system where you can be anywhere in the park, or do you have to be at Space Mountain to get the Genie, queue for that?
I don't think they're geo-locking it. I think, and that's why you can do it. Well, that's why it's only 1 ride at a time. So you don't, and it's all part of their way of making sure, because of capacity, 1, they're getting more money, and two, they're kind of micromanaging the experience, right? So you can do things that are more than just rides, like shopping or food or taking pictures and character meetups, right? All the different things at these parks that are just beyond the rides. But let's be honest, like people go to these parks for the rides. And this makes it more difficult to get into the rides without paying. It's going to be, Disney already is for people who can afford it. It's a very expensive trip. And now they're just making it even more expensive. So a lot of mixed feedback and feelings from longtime Disney fans. But this will be happening soon. Genie Pass. And then also in the tech world, robots. Actually, we haven't. We saw more stories of the Imagineering robots. Remember that little animatronic Groot that I think Mashable got a chance to look at, or TechCrunch got a chance to look at a while back. I think there was a big New York Times story about that same robot and the idea that Disney has a whole character lineup of different robots that are going to be doing these meet and greets, like R2, like Baby Groot, and there's a fear that these robots are going to take the place of a lot of what would be normally human actors doing the character meetups, wearing the costumes. So I think there's a charm to that, but hopefully, to start at least, it's just going to be the characters that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get a human performing as, like Baby Groot. We all saw like Wall-E, for example, right? We all saw with the family Wallies how powerful those characters are when kids meet them, and hopefully this will be the case with those robots. Speaking of robots, though, Elon Musk had some robots to show off at the recent. Well, the announcement, at least coming sometime next year, will be a first prototype of humanoid robots that they're working on. They promise they're working on. This is like the most shower thought project we've seen in a while from the mind of Elon Musk. There are renders of what look like they look so creepy.
It's like a modern crash test dummy is how it looks to me.
A white bodysuit, black slick head with presumably the sensors. The fact that they're going full humanoid to do tasks that would be quote unquote unsafe or repetitive or boring, replacing labor. But do you see the stats for this? Like the target weight and payload?
Yeah.
125 pounds, screened for a face.
Deadlifts 150 pounds. That's pretty amazing. Can carry 45 pounds, 5 feet, 8 inches high. Can run 5 miles an hour. And Elon said why? So you can outrun it.
But why humanoid design?
All of this is so ludicrous. Like we designed it this way so we can easily overpower it, is thinking about robots and AI in a very human intelligence constrained mindset. All of this reminded me of this article that Kevin Kelly wrote, I think like 2017, about how we're thinking about AI in this very kind of constrained way, that basically says like, oh, we can put human intelligence on a chip so that it can mimic human behavior. But human intelligence isn't this one-dimensional thing, and we can't just sort of take all of that dimensionality and put it onto a chip and make this sort of general purpose thing that can do that. And AI doesn't work that way either. And then if we try to emulate the complexities of human thinking into robots and other forms, there's going to be huge consequence rates when you try to do that. So this like kind of blue sky thinking of like of how this was represented made no sense to me whatsoever. And the whole conceit of like, well, I'm worried about robots overpowering you is just like pure science fantasy.
Yeah.
And to have that represented here was just sort of takes away from actual interesting things that they announced at this event.
Okay, but hold on.
Beyond this robot.
Let's stay on the uninteresting things for just one more moment, because I think you're right that is pure science fantasy, but I think that was exactly the point, because this is bait. This is him putting this out there as a hypothetical conceptual product they could conceivably make one day in order to lure engineers to Tesla. He just wants to get, this was a hiring exercise. This whole event
100%
was just to get people to come work for them. And this was sexy for people who are in that field. I guess literally and figuratively to some people in the audience. So I totally get why they did this. I don't expect this to become a product. But then if I let my brain imagine if it does one day become a product, I think people will be astonished at what this costs. I don't think this will cost any less than a Tesla car. I think this will cost as much as it costs to employ somebody for a year, if not more. This is not a consumer robot. This is something that would be well suited for, government work, traffic control, places that currently there's an infrastructure that has been built around some people running, doing
the humanoid form factor.
The humanoid form factor performing certain duties and jobs that doesn't have to change. So they don't have to spend the money on changing the infrastructure. They can insert a robot to do some of those tasks. This is a butler at best for the super rich. Nobody else is going to own this thing.
We have butlers at best for the super rich. They're called butlers, or they're like robots on wheels that can, sort of give you your remote. I really don't like the humanoid form factor. It's such an inefficient form factor for robots from a power standpoint, from a mobility standpoint. Like, the only reason to do it is to evoke that science fiction fantasy. And even if there's an argument that this is all for Mars, right? These are robots that can then be deployed off-world to run limitless and be solar powered and to do things and build, 3D print the buildings on Mars. But while we gear up to send real people there, the form factor still doesn't make sense. Like, all of it is for the flashy headline, including the person wearing the suit, right, coming on stage like that. It's so like World's Fair, 1960s World's Fair, like smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. And it also takes away from the interesting announcements of the day. Like, the D1 chip is actually the thing that we should be talking about more. They announced a chip that is frankly going to compete with some of NVIDIA's strongest chips if it comes to fruition on AI processing. And that AI processing is central to some of the camera recognition that they have in cars. And what they announced is a massive chip, that could really change a lot of how that work is done over the long term. Like, I don't think we have time to get into it, but they didn't get into it either at the level of detail that we'd want. And I think Jeremy's right. This is a glorified exercise in recruiting talent to the company.
What a missed opportunity for Elon to go call it the D20 chip and just tap into another pop culture thing, and say this is the chip for the next century until the 22nd century.
Well, they did say that the robot's code name was Optimus, so points for that.
There you go. All right. That's a leader among robots, and yet to not roll out and to have it be a bipedal. I mean, we talked about last week with Boston Dynamics, the Atlas robots, and how mobility is such a difficult thing that, and these are some of the smartest roboticists in the world working on that very form factor, and how, and still how it's far from the sleek 125-pound frame that we're talking about here. Like, there is no number of battery or actuators that will get you the range of movement that can fit in that frame, unless like they have access to space age, nanotube materials that no one else has access to.
It was interesting to hear him describe the cars as semi-sentient robots on wheels. Like, that's not an interesting. I mean, that's not an uninteresting take on it. Like, I can see the leap from there to making other types of robots. But I agree with you. This is a impractical form factor.
A Autobot's pet, we'll call it, right? Semi-sentient robot on wheels is what Optimus would call his pet.
Yeah. On the D, was it D1? Is that the chip's name? On that topic, I liked their metric for success on that is if the software group wants to turn off the GPU cluster. I think that makes perfect sense. But which is to say, like, they don't need the D1 chip to progress. They're still working with an immensely powerful GPU cluster for the next, year and a half till they get this thing spun up. But that's kind of their metric for success, and it's simply practical. I hope that they do pull that off. Apparently, like, some of the challenges involved here are unprecedented. It's really an interesting challenge.
From a user experience standpoint, this stuff's obviously got to work well, and they have to support a range of vehicles. You see on Twitter that John Carmack went to recently visit their rocket facility, the SpaceX rocket facility. In a Twitter thread, said that who owns a Model S has offered to help optimize their UX and has been getting some user data or some processing data from Tesla engineers to help improve the performance, as is his expertise in GUI.
For the screen? For the touch
screen? For the screen, for the touch screen, and
awesome.
For the thing that he could actually benefit from as a user of the car. Great. And that, he has a lot of experience in optimizing, frame rates.
He wore a Captain America t-shirt. Was that the joke that he was there with Tony Stark? Is that the idea?
I didn't pick up on that. But okay.
My interpretation.
All right. And speaking of John Carmack, last bits, some quick updates in VR. The new Oculus Quest base model is out now on all major retail outlets. So that's same price, $300 for the 128 gigabyte new standard base entry level SKU. No longer will we have to answer the question of which model to get. It won't be just 64 or 256. 128 is a plenty good sweet spot based on the storage needs of games and media that we've used in the Quest 2 over the past year. And since we podcasted last, Jeremy, you got a chance to try out Horizon Workrooms. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was, I guess, better than I thought. I was right. I really like the whiteboard stuff, being able to write. I was not prepared for the fidelity of being able to write small handwriting. Like, it's really good. It's really good. Like, yeah. And the haptics when you take the controller, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, you flip it around so that you're holding it like a pen. You put it on the desk, and then there are like rumble feedback, as if like there's a sensation of writing, and that feels right. And you can write very fine details, and it appears in front of you or on the whiteboard. And that's really cool. Like, I think that's an innovation that is going to have really good consequences. I'm really happy. And the positional audio was good. I'm still not sold on the eye contact. I still think we need eye tracking to make that believable and make it really look right. And I was seriously some sort of facial scanning. Once we get that stuff, then I'm going to feel like I'm in the room with you. Until then, this is a pretty great next step.
And even the voice to animation, the text to speech stuff was, I think, convincing.
It's good.
Combined with the spatial audio, what it tells me is that eye tracking does not need to be perfect. We've seen all these demos of other past startups putting eye tracking as accessories, even in the Vive as an accessory, and all the inherent latency issues, the accuracy issues, the problems that eye tracking has inherently as a cost thing to put into a headset. And what Horizons tells me is that they don't need perfect fidelity eye tracking in any future device. They can have entry level, good enough eye tracking just to help support and supplement and create more accurate versions of the animation models that they implemented in this system.
They're doing all they can, without eye tracking. But they've all but conceded that the Quest Pro, whatever this next, half, incremental version of the Quest 2 is going to be before the Quest 3, that this next version will have eye tracking. I think they've hinted at that strongly. And it's such a natural fit for Facebook, an advertising company, to put eye tracking, in their device that they sell. Like, they'd probably want it on every phone and every computer monitor if they could do it.
Yeah. And it's a question of whether the utility of what it brings is compelling enough to make it a killer app, an essential piece of hardware. Eye tracking for communication, for your animation models, or even varifocal. Like, that's my big question. Are they going to implement varifocal lensing for multi-planes of focus, as they've been R&Ding, which requires eye tracking? Is that going to be in their next headset? All right, that does it for this week's podcast. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, again, no news breaks in the next 48 hours before this is released, but if it does, we'll talk about it next week. But thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Jeremy and Kishore. Anything you guys want to give shout outs to in the meantime?
No, I'm good, man.
You're good. All right. Working on your
same.
projects, working on other projects. You can check out videos. If you're listening to this Thursday morning, we should have a very fun build video out on Thursday, a model kit building video that people have been asking for a long time. So stay tuned for that. I'm being cryptic on purpose. All right. I'll play outro music in the edit, but until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Hot dog.
Hot dog. Hot dog.
I don't
Hot
know.
dog.
Hot dog.
Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot diggity dog. Not hot dog.
What are you talking about?
That's it.